Greetings and welcome to Writers on Writing. I am your host, Dr. Brenda Greene, and this radio show is paid for by Medgar Evers College. Writers on Writing comes to you each Sunday and gives you, our listening audience, an opportunity to hear writers from the African diaspora talk about their life, their craft, and their work. And so I am very, very pleased to have with me today a renowned queen, you call her Mother Queen, Nana Camille Yarbrough, who is the author of a book that many people may know. One of her books, her many books, is Cornrows. Cornrows. And I want to tell you first a little bit about Camille Yarbrough. In addition to writing, Camille Yarbrough has a distinguished career as an actress, composer, and singer. She's been awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College, an Outstanding Artist Award from the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, the Unity Award in Media from Lincoln University in Missouri, and the Lorraine Hansberry Award by Chicago's Goodman Theater. She's appeared on television, in theater, was a member of the touring group for To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. She has been praised for her first acclaimed album, The Iron Pot Cooker, and produced her second, Ancestral House. And her book is a winner of the Coretta Scott King Award for illustration and a notable children's book, trade book in the field of social studies. And we know that for books, we always have to also give praise to our illustrator, Carol Bayard. Carol Bayard has illustrated a beautiful book. She is known for her fine art and her illustration of many books for children, including Working Cotton by Shirley Ann Williams, for which she won the Callada Honor and Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award. She also won the Coretta Scott King Illustration Award for Africa Dream, and an illustrator honor for Grandma's Joys by Ella Louise Greenfield. And so we have very, very excited to have the reissuing of Cornrows, a book that our children need to know about, particularly our girl children. Yes, you've done it very nicely. You have the image of Cornrows. So, let's begin by talking about Cornrows. So, the other thing I want to say is that Nana Camille Yarbrough is been called the foremother of rap. But let's begin, huh?
I have been called that, yes.
Yes, okay. So let's begin by talking about Cornrows, which is not just a story about cornrows, but it has so much history about our culture and spirituality and family and the cornrows. So tell us why you were motivated to tell this story.
It started early. Me having been born in Chicago, Southside, USA, growing up at a time when we were still damaged, carrying the damage of our enslavement and all of that came after the changing. I saw around me people who did not like their hair, people of African ancestry. As a matter of fact, one of my brothers told me that God made a mistake when he made our hair.
Oh, my goodness.
When I was a child, I was very conscious of what was going around me, the feelings and the images. And I'm a backstory teller. So I always wanted to know why. Why do we feel that way? And as I grew up, I began to read more writings from the continent, people who live there now and who came here, and many of our educators here who had studied the culture. And one day I just got tired of seeing our hair laughed at. And it still is today, unfortunately, in many areas. And so I decided I was older than when I wrote Cornrows, but I'd seen, and as I said before, I was just, as the old folks say, I'm sick and tired of us.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes, and belittling ourselves. And then I wanted to know why. Where did that happen? And that's what my other book that I've just finished is about. Why? Where did it come from? And so I wrote the book, and I'm just part of it is more than 5,000 years of tradition we can share, braided in our hair. I'm talking about cornrows. And we can wear more than 5,000 years of tradition. What does that mean, being of tradition? That means we have systems of support, systems of worship, systems of sharing, systems of education. All of that is in that 5,000 years that go into our wearing our hair. And the tradition was in some places that you name your braids. You just,
Yes.
in honor of people who have achieved your mother, your father, your relatives. But in the book, I name it because when I was very young, Paul Robeson was speaking out and standing up and making a new understanding of our image as people of African ancestry. And so in the book, it says, name it Robeson, name it Malcolm, you could name it Dr. King, name it Du Bois, name it Garvey, name it something you can sing. And I'm saying, if you wear your hair and name it Du Bois or name it Malcolm, how would you carry yourself? Would you be calling your relative a bitch? Excuse me. No, that wouldn't come out of his mouth. Oh, Paul Robeson. Then I went to the sisters. Now I'm going to open the new book and get to that part. Because it is important to name it and to carry your culture and carry it with style and proud. It is our crown. It's so mama, and I also said it in a family. You have the mother, you have the father, you have grandmother, and you have a sister, and you have me too. So
I love that.
I wanted that family in there, and I did have a little brother. We called him Me Too. Let me read the names, because who today, and I want to ask the young people, who today would you honor with your hair braided in cornrows now? Because that's the root. Whose name would you call? And we know, as elders who've been in the culture, a lot of names out there we could call.
Yes.
And
Yes.
name it for the village clan. You can style your hair. You work, but let me get to the names, because it talks about also how it came about that we were separated from the names that we had at home in the
Right. Right. So you as I said, you're giving a lot of history. You're going back to Africa, you're doing the transatlantic slave trade, you're talking about what happened during the period of enslavement. You are talking about the importance of spirituality, and you're giving history. You're giving people a way of renaming themselves and building on the legends of their ancestors and their heroes and sheroes.
more than 5,000 years, 10,000 years of
Yes.
traditions. And we
Yes.
begin to think of ourselves again as traditional people. You could name it for a poem. I'm trying to get to the name it of the picture. Name it Robeson, name it Malcolm, you can name it Dr. King, name it Du Bois, name it Garvey, name it something you can sing. The children must know who they are. So in
Yes.
and naming their hair, they find out who these people are. Name it Tubman, name it Hammer, or you can style her Fannie Lou. Name it Nzinga, Rosa Parks, and please name it Hatshepsut too. Then it goes on, name it Miriam. Who's Miriam? What are they talking about?
Yes.
And what did she say? Catherine Dunham, because I worked in that company for years and learned from it. Name it Bethune and Josephine, name it Aretha, name it Nina, name it Priestess, name it Queen. Who today, they know these people, but this new generation, who are the heroes? Who are the
Yes.
who have
Yes. I
given
said
something to us?
the
And who,
book,
yeah,
right. It's really gives many teachable moments. So
yes.
you're talking about cornrows, about why the cornrows? How did that origin? I thought that was very interesting.
I've come to know a different approach to it. I was told and came to believe that we were in the fields raising not just cotton, we were raising rice, we were raising corn, and those who are raising corn, look at the fields and you'll see how the plants grow. The leaves going this way, leaves going that way, leaves going this way, leaves going that way. And so I said, and I was told you can name it for, where's it go? How the leaves grow.
Right. And the rows of corn.
The rows of corn grow that way.
Yes.
Now, I came upon a professor from Senegal, and I ordered a dictionary, a language book in Yoruba, not Yoruba, but from West Africa. What's the language? It's just jumped out of my mind. From Senegal, they speak another language. Anyhow, and I should go over there and get the book.
No, that's okay.
Because it says, it has another word, a Wolof. Oh, that's the word. Wolof.
Oh, Wolof. Okay, because you have the, okay.
It has a word in Wolof, which sounds like Cornrows. You understand? So
Okay.
many times we have carried from the African culture right over here, and then we forget and we say, well, it's the field, it's the corn. But if you look at the book that I have, in Wolof, there's a word that sounds like you would be saying cornrows. So that might be a retention itself. Either way, the thing is we can adapt it here to our heroes and sheroes. And also just go back to the books that speak of naming the hair, because that is so, as a matter of fact, when this new publication came out, and they asked me to write a piece about it, and I did. And I sort of lifted up the part of naming our hair, our cornrows. And the editor came back and he said, we're talking about it in some promotion. And is it they wanted to know, was it necessary? Yes, it's necessary to name it. So
interesting. Yes.
She wasn't happy. But that's one reason why that's there, because the tradition was you pass on culture. In the book that I just finished, I have a great grandmother who lived to be 115 years old, in enslavement and out of enslavement. And I have to name something after her. So she's in the other book with her name. She at that point, they would not allow us to glorify cornrows. As a matter of fact, they wanted us to cover up our hair.
That's right. That's right. So you've written other books, the Shimmers, the
Queens.
Yes. Why don't you share with us some of your other books, because you can still get some of them. They still are in print, but the Shimmer Shine Queen.
I published this again myself. It was in publication, then he left it, and then Random House took it, and then they, over years. So the Shimmer Shine Queens, we are all, and I was just speaking with the sister here about growing up. The growing up period is a very delicate period, because you're just coming into some kind of understanding of who you are psychically and physically. And much damage is done during that time. And many of the times the adults are not aware of the fact that they're scaring their children, terrorizing them, hurting them so much. And so knowing that, and coming up in a family of 8 children, and a father from Alabama who had gone through all of the terrors of that time and that period, we kind of inherited a lot of that. And so this book, The Shimmer Shine Queens, is a young girl, can you see it? Two young girls who are in school, and they're coming through the pressures of living under circumstances created by outsiders for us. And so, thank goodness they had each other. They had friends, And when one of them had trouble at home and went to school, she had somebody to talk with. And I think many of us now living sort of separate lives, or in the internet a lot, don't speak deeply to one another.
Yes.
And these young girls, that's what happened. Even when there was a fight, somebody was there to take up for her. And so they went into poetry. One of them started, like I did later on, but I went into dance earlier. And so at the end, the fact that their father was not there anymore, the fact that their mother had 2 other children, and all of that is there. When children read it, they say, yeah, that's like
They
my.
can relate to it. They know that story.
And
Yeah,
also when they lived in the high riser and it was dangerous and walking up the stairs. All of that is there, but there are proverbs in it too. One of them, when they tore up the recreation room, some children who were not doing well, and the sister who was there, they called Nana, and I'm introducing those African references there and names. She told them, the pot is not broken. Your community center, the school, your togetherness is not broken. It's just cracked a little bit. Then we can repair that, you understand. And there's something that I do when I used to give performances. When I would, and these children in this book do it. They do it twice in this book. And in Tamika, in the Wisdom Rings, also, they do that ritual. And I ask them people to stand. Sometime in a concert, and many times it was interesting. I did it in class up at City College once, and I asked them to hug, and people stood back. They didn't want to touch each other.
right.
That's what I'm talking about. So, and I asked them first to clasp their fingers like we're born of an old seed, right? Then going down, we're growing from a deep root. I'm taking them back to the motherland. We're part of a strong branch, and that's us coming out of the motherland. But you are the sweet fruit of the great mother tree. And I let it shake. But if you go into Africa and you see them doing this, it has to do with energy. So when they do that, it's about energy. And no matter where we go, no matter where we may be, I am part of you, you're part of me. And the children do this and they like it too.
Right.
We are.
So the spirit, the importance of spirit. And you've done that in your songs, like the Iron Pot Cooker. You want to talk about your albums, the albums you produce, the Iron Pot Cooker and Ancestral House.
Yes, the Iron Pot Cooker has so much in it, but that was my showing the negative, showing what had happened. But at the end, I'm asking, and which is the title of my new book, must it always come out mad? And at the bottom, the little girl says, no. It just takes a while. You understand? Okay. And then she goes on to discover much of what I'm saying to you now. But that's why I wrote. Oh, that's why I wrote the books. There was Tamika and the Wisdom Rings, the Shimmer Shine Queens, a little tree growing in the shade, and I wrote that especially because I wanted our young people to know where rap came from. And you know about that.
Yes.
I know a lot about that with your son and that life. But it's very old and it's our tradition. And one thing I use, it's in my other book, the new one, but the tradition of praise singing, praise naming. And sometimes in an open, when they pour libation, part of the libation, we do it simply here. But sometimes on the continent, the libation takes a while because you have to deal with your ancestors and all of that. So there's some names, and I used to do it. No, here we go, not losing my mind. It is love is it's a perception changer. It's a rearranger. Love is a mind devolver. It's a problem solver. Love is a beast eater. Love is a soul excreter. Love is a void filler and a bias filler. It's a thought former. It's a plan former. It's a power orchestrator and a tongue translator. It's a keeping on keeper, a reaping on reaper, a co-op stopper and a cover dropper. It's a deluder polluter, a slave pin looter, a rip-off ripper and a strung out clipper. And it goes on like that.
I love it. I love it.
That's our tradition. And
yes. You're carrying on the tradition of the griot. Yes. The griot, the griots, and the importance of healing. You talk about the importance of healing, the importance of community, the importance of fellowship, the importance of praising our ancestors. I'd like you to share what you've done. You also spent much of your life in dance and, of course, performance. Why don't you share with our listening audience your backgrounds and what that was like for you and why that was very important. It's all part of a circle. The true Renaissance woman.
Well, aren't most of us who are still here. um, my background in South Side of Chicago, it was a combination of things. There was still that spirit of family there. My father lost most of his family. At the end, he had to leave because of the brutality that was there. But he always talked about family.
Did you come up during the migration? Your family moved to Chicago during the migration? Yes.
Yes, in the Depression and in the migration.
Right, part of the migration.
Chicago, where so many of our people came to find a better living. Well, as I say in the book, my family did not have, their budget could not allow for a bicycle. And I looked, because I like to read, but I would read the newspapers all the time and the funny books that my brother had. I graduated, but that's where I was started. So the Chicago News, Chicago Daily Sun-Times, Chicago Sun was one newspaper. The Chicago Times was another newspaper. They decided to come together and form the Chicago Sun-Times. And in order to build up their readership, they were offering young people a bicycle, a brand new Schrin or J.C. Higgins bicycle. And I read that and I said, I want one. And so I sold subscriptions for myself and for my little brother, and I got a bicycle. And it gave me a feeling of accomplishment. This is mine. I work hard for it. And not only that, I began to ride around Chicago, and I went into the park, Washington Park, and I heard something. And I said, what? It stopped me. And I came off of the pavement and went riding around till I found it in the community center where they were teaching dance. And at that time, they called our dance primitive dance. That was a dance. They didn't say from this country, these people, or whatever. They didn't say this movement means what, this means, no. So that's where the dance started. And the teachers, it brought something to me that I felt was mine when I went in there and heard those rhythms and saw the move and felt that energy. The teachers there saw my feeling about it, and they told me to go downtown, which was a white section of town, but they had some dance teachers down there. And so I started studying dance at that point, and I studied some modern Martha Graham kind, but I studied mostly with this brother who was teaching what was a kind of Catherine Dunham, what do you say? It was mixed. It wasn't purely. Okay. And then the other man from the Caribbean, he was the one who was into modern dance. So I studied with them while I was in high school. And it was difficult because we didn't have any money and I had my little money it was interesting. So that's when the dance started. But of course, at that time, you didn't see Alvin Ailey, you didn't see all these other dance companies, but you saw Catherine Dunham's company in the movie. Stormy Weather was one of them. And I remember all of my dance buddies, we were sitting there looking and examining and said, the movements, and we'd go home and we'd practice those movements. And I was still studying almost every day. I was in a dance class and in film because it was the culture that was coming to me. And it was like a breath of fresh air. I became not depressed by my circumstance, conditions. No, none of that. It was dance and culture, people. I wanted to know who these people were who were dancing like that. And so one day, a teacher, one of her former dancers, Dunham's former dancer, who was in her original company, came to Chicago to teach. And at that time, I had a partner, and he and I were dancing around Chicago. The teacher saw us, asked us to be part of her concert. We were part of her concert. One day I received a call from her saying that Catherine Dunham's husband is in town and they're looking for dancers. I don't think I can explain here the feeling that I got that we had a chance to get into the Catherine Dunham company. Wow. So we auditioned, my partner and I. Unfortunately, they asked me to come to California without money.
Oh, okay.
He was too short, basically. That's what it was. And then she was doing these, doing a part about when she was Egyptian. You understand? Way back then, in the 30s, 40s, and she's carried on this platform. So they had these big, strong brothers who were dancing. And I went there and joined that company and learned a different level of involvement in our dance. And that we were every place. Yes, we were in Argentina and created the dances that come out, the tango and other dances. Yes, we were in Mexico. I didn't know that, but we had been in our African people for a long time.
That's right. That's right.
Of course, in Brazil. So we were doing the samba. We were doing dances from the diaspora. You would see. Right. And so it again, I was just filling up and filling up. At the same time, I was reading. When I was in high school, I was reading Du Bois. I was reading what was the other brother, Richard Wright. I was reading Bethune, Mary Bethune, who was active at that time, and I was reading others, Langston Hughes, of course. But it was the dance that took me there, and it's still with me, because you have to work on a deeper level.
Right. Believe it or not, we are at a close. We have a close, but I would like you to give a message to our young people and to our future writers and dancers. And also, what is you talked about your new book. What is your new book? So I'm asking you to do several things. We want a message that you can leave with us, and to talk to us quickly about your new book as we come to a close.
It was I hear it too often nowadays when our people say, well, everybody's doing it. They're going to wear these clothes because everybody's doing it. They're going to put on this makeup. They're going to have all kind of sex because everybody's doing it. Well, everybody doesn't need to be doing it. I mean, that the fact that everybody's doing, and it's not everybody, but a lot of people in the media, you read, look on television and places, and you see styles of living, which are not necessarily good for you. But when you're young and you're trying to find yourself, find out who you are, and you're having feelings that you don't understand, and nobody's talking to you about it, unless you go in the street, like a lot of our children were educated in the street about life.
Yes.
You, each and every one of you, is more, you are more than you are presented. You're more than a body. You know, in Cornrows, I say there's a spirit that lives inside of you. It keeps growing. It never dies. Sometimes when you're afraid, that spirit trembles. Sometimes when you're hurt and ready to give up, it barely flickers, but it keeps growing. It never dies. And that's that spiritual part of you, the intellectual part of you, the creative, the God part of you. And I don't like to say God too much because the God goes by many names. But that spirit, that energy of creativity is still there. To me, God is creativity. You know what I mean? Because when you go in creating something, you go in a special place. And I urge our children our young people, to not let the outside world, the me world, the everybody's doing it world, don't let that influence you, because you have a superpower inside. That superpower is your culture, born of spirit. Your culture is the anchor in life that keeps you from drifting in life. Your culture is the compass. Get into your culture, it'll point you the way to go. And third, your culture is the spiritual engine that gives you the power that takes you forward. So everything is in that thing that a lot of people don't want you to know about, because they have certain power and they don't want you to have, oh Lord, did I take us off?
Okay, no, I'm listening. You are here, and we love your words and the importance of spirit. I think that is a beautiful way to close, and you are full of such a generous spirit. Thank you so much for the work that you have done over the years, over the decades. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you for your spirit, and thank you for Cornrows, which I encourage everyone to purchase. It should be one of the books you have in your library, it was designed for children ages 3 to 8, but it is for everyone because, as I said, it teaches us about the spirit world, the ancestral tradition, culture, history, and it's a way to keep that light going and keep the spirit going.
It is available at Six Sisters Bookstore on the 23rd in Harlem. We're going to have a celebration of the renewal, the rebirth of the book Cornrows. In the evening, you can go to Google or wherever to get that phone number for Sisters Bookstore. Then later on in Brooklyn, it's going to be at the people who create the African Festival.
The International African Arts Festival.
Yeah, NACO.
Yes.
They're going to give a celebration also on, I think it's the 24th. But look in the media and you can see it there. I'm sorry, I don't have that information to show you right now.
Well, I thank you so much. Thank you again. And I want to remind our listening audience that the writers always reading, the readers always writing. Keep reading and writing. Empower yourselves as readers and writers. This has been Dr. Brenda Greene, Executive Director of the Center for Black Literature, Director of the National Black Writers Conference, and this radio show is paid for by Medgar Evers College. Thank you, Nana Camille Yarbrough.